The world has changed in the past year. A lot of people can work from home now, jobs are changing, everything is changing. If you're working from home now, you might be thinking, where do I want to live? Two places that commonly make that list are Denver and Tampa. We're going to compare those and talk about them right now. I'm Sam, and if this is your first time coming by the channel, thanks for stopping by. Every week, we make videos about what it's like to live, work, and play in the Tampa, Florida area. If that's something you want to follow along with, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit that little bell so you're notified every time one of our videos comes out. I am also a licensed realtor in the state of Florida, so if you have any real estate specific questions, please don't hesitate to call, text, email anytime. My number and email are on the screen right now. All right, let's get into it. Denver versus Tampa, a big showdown. First, let's talk about why I chose these two cities. I moved to the Tampa area in May of 2020. I know, kind of a weird time to move, beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. But the pandemic was one of the reasons I moved. We wanted to be closer to family, and my wife's family is in the Tampa area. We moved from Colorado. We lived in Colorado for 10 years. It's where I met my wife, we got married, owned houses, had our daughter. Colorado is a very special place to us, and it's a place we were very sad to leave. Let's talk about some of the reasons why Colorado might be for you or Florida might be for you. The idea for this video came from another YouTube video. Some friends of mine have a channel called Living in Denver, Colorado, about living in Denver, Colorado. If you are thinking of moving to Colorado or looking for a new place to live in Colorado, reach out to them. In their video, they talked about some things that make Colorado better than Florida. I want to talk about some of those things because I have a little bit different perspective having lived in Florida for almost a year now. And I'm focusing on Denver and Tampa because they're about the same size. And I actually live in the Tampa area, so I can speak a little more specifically about this area. There are a lot of other big cities in Florida: Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, and all of these areas have their pros and cons. All right, let's start with population, just so we are kind of comparing apples to apples. Denver is right around 3.5 million, and Tampa is right around 3.1 million. Of course, these cities are made up of a lot of small cities and a few different counties, but we're going to look at the area, the greater Denver area, the greater Tampa area, because if you're living in these areas, you might not be living in downtown, like the area that's actually known as Tampa or that kind of thing. Since we just came through an election season, looking at the voter turnout for each of these candidates is actually a pretty interesting way to look at an area. Of course, elections are always divisive. So here's the numbers, and you can draw the conclusions you want. And I'll try to not draw too many conclusions. Hillsborough County voted more Democrat than Republican. Of course, not all of those voters are registered to the Democratic or Republican Party, but that's how this voter turnout worked. Pinellas County, just barely more Democrat than Republican voter turnout. And then Pasco County, more Republican turnout than Democrat. Pinellas County is actually the county that I live in, and it's known as a very purple county. So it's very like half and half registered Democrat, half registered Republicans. And this county usually indicates which way the election will go. This actual county of Pinellas County is one of them in the country that's tracked, that's a very split county. And usually the way that this county votes is indicative of the final turnout. And that was true this year with Pinellas County going for Biden and the country going for Biden as well. So you see that the Tampa area is pretty split or diverse in this regard. And I'll let you draw whatever conclusions you want from that. What is one thing in Florida that unites everyone? College sports. And this is something that Colorado doesn't have in the way that Florida has. Typically, Floridians are fans of the University of Florida, the Gators, or Florida State University, the Seminoles. And this is a big rivalry. There are also a lot of professional teams, but those fans just aren't quite as devoted as these college fans. And that's something that stands out about Florida to me compared to Colorado. In Colorado, the college sports just aren't as big of a deal to people. When I lived in Colorado, it was really common to talk about how many days of sunshine there were in the state. And there are a lot. Colorado is a very, very sunny state. Actually, in Denver, the sun is shining in the city 69% of the year, compared to Tampa's 66% of the year, when Florida is the sunshine state. But it actually does shine more in Denver. But don't forget, in Denver, sometimes when the sun is shining, you're bundled up, and that sunshine is actually only hitting your face and your hands. In Florida, you have a chance for that sunshine to hit a lot more of your skin. And in Florida, I don't know if we want more sunshine. Actually, the clouds are a nice cover at times because it is such warm weather most of the year. Let's talk about traffic. Traffic in Tampa is becoming more known for just being bad. Some of this is because of the way the area is structured. There is a big bay that goes in between the two largest counties that make up the area. There are a few roads that go across that bay, but it's kind of difficult to get from one area to the other, especially if you're living closer to the beaches and you're having to commute to Tampa. It's not that Denver is immune to traffic, but they do have a few different interstates and toll roads that make their traffic a little more bearable. When we look at congestion levels, traffic in Denver is 15% congested. Traffic in Tampa is 18% congested. Pretty close to each other, with Denver having a slight advantage. Let's look at an example that I think will help you see how the traffic and congestion would affect your daily driving. Let's say you're driving in the morning, you have 30 minutes to drive. The traffic in Tampa is going to slow you down by about 7 minutes. In that same situation, morning time, 30-minute drive in Denver, you're only going to be slowed down by 6 minutes. Pretty close. But if we look at the evening, Tampa is going to slow you down in the same situation, 30-minute drive, for 11 minutes. In Denver, only 9 minutes. So Tampa evening congestion is significantly worse than the morning congestion. That's quite a big effect. 11 minutes on a 30-minute drive changes that drive quite a bit. One of the main things I realized once I moved to Florida is how little I depend on my car here. Of course, I still need to get from point A to point B, but I don't need to warm it up. I don't need to defrost the windshield. I don't need all-wheel drive. In Colorado, you really do need that kind of stuff. This means your car needs to be nicer, in better condition, and you're just going to depend on it more than you would in other places, and that means your vehicle expenses might be higher. Also in the Tampa area, I've really noticed how all the towns that make up the area are pretty self-sufficient. If you look at this map, this animation shows how the Tampa area grew from these other areas, and it grew into this big metro, where Denver has grown really from the center and has become this big city based on one point. What this means in my daily life is that things are more accessible. I can walk to a grocery store, a farmer's market, a pharmacy, a park, lakes, the library, and with a toddler, this is really nice and convenient. Sometimes getting in the car and getting out is way more work than just hopping in the stroller and moving along. I was actually surprised by this aspect of the Tampa area. Alright, let's look at home prices. Let's say you're moving to one of these places and you want to buy a house. In the greater Tampa area, your average and median are right around $280,000. And that house is usually on the market for about 2 months. For Denver, there's a lot of different numbers available, and I'm going to use the lowest one just so I'm not giving Tampa too many artificial points. But the low end of the Denver average home price is around $508,000. That is a lot of money for a home. And that home was on the market for an average of 1 month. So what does that mean? It means that in Denver, you're paying double for your house and you're having to buy it 2 times faster. The market is 2 times more competitive. Okay, culture. And this is an area that I think Colorado really shines because they have a very consistent culture across the state. It's very common to be healthy, active, engaged in your community across the whole state, and especially in the cities. Colorado is known for being very active, and that's not just because of the mountains. It's mostly because of the people. Also, if you're a dog person, Colorado and Denver are so dog friendly. There's dog friendly restaurants and parks, and in the Tampa area, you really don't get that same feel. Even in a lot of the parks, there's just very specific areas that you're allowed to have dogs and other areas where it's restricted. And I want to be clear, it's not that the Tampa area doesn't have this culture, but if we look back at that map of how the city grew from these other points, it makes sense that these little points have their own culture, but it hasn't evolved into a very cohesive kind of homogenous culture for the area. Now, you may not want a homogenous culture for the area. You may like these little pockets of differing things, but if that's something that's important to you, Denver is the winner. All right, public transportation. I'm a little split on this. Honestly, Denver has a wonderful public transportation system. The light rail system is really easy to use, and it goes all the way down to like close to Colorado Springs and then all the way out to the international airport. It's very nice, very simple. There's great parking spots all over the city, big parking lots that you can park and go into the city. Also, Denver is very bikeable. There's a lot of bike lanes, and the drivers are used to working around bikes. There's not a tension really between cars and bikes like there is in Tampa. In Tampa, there are big bike trails, but they're not really used for transportation. They're more used for recreation. Even though that's the case, the Tampa area is still going to give you more time to be on your bike throughout the year. We're not going to have the winters like Denver has. Of course, we're going to have way hotter summers where you really need to protect yourself from that sunshine. But if you're moving fast on a bike, then you have some relief from the heat as well. Something that's very popular among my friends and family is food. Some cities have better food than others. Of course they do. Denver has really focused on this. Denver has a really great and thriving food scene. And this takes adventurous people making good food, promoting it, getting it out there. And the city has really come in to support places like that. Tampa has not done that, or has not done that yet. Of course, there's always potential, there's room to grow, but Tampa and the towns that make up the Tampa area have battled with food trucks and have not really supported these kind of hyper-local restaurants and breweries and things like that in the way that a place like Colorado has. But I do feel confident that Tampa and the people in the area are trying hard to support these kind of things. Okay, let's finish just hitting on cost of living a little bit. The cost of living in Denver is around 20% higher total. That includes, housing, utilities, internet, transportation, groceries, all those kind of things. Housing is always going to be your major expense. Denver home purchasing is almost double the price. That means that if you're used to a mortgage of $1,000 a month, you have to change the way you think to get used to $2,000 a month. The next thing that means is that your paycheck doesn't go near as far in Denver as it does in Tampa. Again, these are the guys, Eli and Will. If you're thinking about moving to Colorado, hit them up. If you're thinking about moving to Tampa, here's my number and my email. Please reach out day or night. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your thoughts. And make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit that little bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Thanks for coming by.